questioning traditional beliefs. A new perspective. As Ifueko's immersion in her new Canadian environment deepened, so too did her inclination to question the traditional beliefs and values she had been raised with. The exposure to a multitude of viewpoints and ideologies in her school and social life became the catalyst for a significant shift in her perspective. In her world where multiple cultures intersected, Ifueko found herself increasingly questioning the norms and practices she had always taken for granted. The teachings and values that had once seemed unquestionable began to appear less absolute. She started to critically analyze aspects of her upbringing, especially those pertaining to religion, gender roles, and communal living, which had been central to her identity. Classes at school often sparked this introspection. Discussions in history and social studies prompted her to think about the role of religion in society, the nature of belief systems, and the evolution of cultural norms over time. Conversations with her peers, many of whom came from secular or different religious backgrounds, introduced her to alternative ways of thinking about morality, purpose, and life. This journey of questioning was not just intellectual, it was deeply personal. Ifueko began to reevaluate her own beliefs, wrestling with questions about faith, tradition, and identity. She grappled with the guilt that sometimes accompanied these questions, feeling as though she was betraying her family's teachings. Yet, the desire to understand and explore these new perspectives was compelling. Her parents, Osahan and Osarag, observed these changes with a mix of concern and bewilderment. They tried to engage with Ifueko, often attempting to provide context and clarity to the beliefs they held dear. These discussions, while well-intentioned, sometimes led to misunderstandings, highlighting the generational and cultural gap between them. For Ifueko, the process of questioning traditional beliefs was not about outright rejection, but rather a search for a deeper understanding. She was carving out her own belief system, one that incorporated both the wisdom of her upbringing and her new experiences and learnings. This period of introspection and questioning was a crucial part of her growth, a necessary step in forging a path that felt authentic to her in her new environment. Through this journey, Ifueko was not only exploring new ideas, she was also learning to appreciate the complexity of belief systems and the value of viewing the world through multiple lenses. It was a transformative phase, marked by moments of doubt, enlightenment, and a gradual redefining of her worldview. Cultural integration and identity conflict. As Ifueko immersed herself in the diverse culture of Canada, she faced the intricate challenge of melding her deeply ingrained Nigerian heritage with the new, often contrasting values of her Canadian surroundings. This journey was not just a physical relocation but a profound exploration of her identity. The streets of Canada, with their blend of languages, customs, and people, were a far cry from the familiar lanes of Benin City. Ifueko was captivated by this diversity, eagerly absorbing the new experiences around her. She attended cultural events that were a riot of colors and sounds, tasted foods that danced on her palate with unfamiliar flavors, and formed friendships that broadened her understanding of the world. Yet, with each step she took into this new world, Ifueko felt the tether to her roots stretch and strain. The values that had been her guiding stars, community, tradition, and faith, sometimes seemed out of sync with the individualistic ethos around her. She found herself questioning the beliefs she had never thought to question before, wondering where she fit in this kaleidoscope of cultures. The freedom and independence celebrated in her Canadian life were exhilarating, yet they brought with them a sense of dissonance. The individualistic culture encouraged her to prioritize personal choice and self-expression, which clashed with the communal and family-oriented values she was raised with. Navigating this cultural divide, Ifueko felt torn between the desire to embrace her new environment and the loyalty to her heritage. This conflict was most evident in her relationship with her faith. The inclusive and liberal perspectives she encountered at school and in her social circles stood in contrast to the conservative Christian teachings of her upbringing. Church in Canada, while a source of spiritual solace, lacked the familiar fervor and communal warmth of her church back home, leaving her feeling spiritually adrift. Her family, especially her parents, watched this transformation with a blend of concern and understanding. Conversations at home, once simple exchanges, now turned into complex discussions about identity, belief, and tradition. Ifueko's parents, Osahan and Osarag, attempted to bridge the gap, offering wisdom from their own experiences. Yet, these conversations often highlighted the generational divide, deepening Ifueko's sense of being caught between two worlds. In this dance of adaptation, Ifueko was constantly balancing, trying to hold onto the essence of her Nigerian roots while giving herself the freedom to explore and grow in her new Canadian reality. It was a delicate, often confusing process, but one that was integral to forging her unique identity, an identity shaped by the richness of two distinct worlds.
Altered relationships, family and faith. As the days unfolded in their new Canadian life, the transformations within Ifueko began to ripple through her family, subtly altering the dynamics that had once felt so familiar and comfortable. The harmony that had defined their household was now punctuated by moments of discord, underscoring the growing divide between Ifueko's evolving perspectives and her family's traditional values. At the heart of this shift was Ifueko's relationship with her faith. The spirited religious discussions that were once a staple of family time began to take on a different tone. Ifueko, armed with questions and influenced by the diverse viewpoints she encountered outside her home, often challenged the beliefs she had grown up with. Her parents, Osahan and Osarag, faced these questions with a mix of concern and uncertainty, unsure how to guide their daughter through her spiritual quandaries. This tension extended beyond their conversations about faith. Ifueko's new way of dressing, her varied interests, and her growing circle of friends were all reflections of her changing identity, and they sometimes stood in stark contrast to her family's way of life. Osahan and Osarag, while trying to be understanding, couldn't help but feel a sense of loss for the traditions and values they feared were slipping away. Aisosa, ever the peacemaker, found herself in an increasingly challenging position. She empathized with Ifueko's desire to explore and assert her individuality, but she also shared her parents' reverence for their cultural and religious heritage. Aisosa's attempts to mediate often brought temporary respite, but the underlying issues remained, a silent undercurrent in their daily lives. The dinner table, once a place of unity and laughter, became a microcosm of the family's internal struggles. Conversations could swiftly transition from mundane topics to heated debates about cultural norms, personal freedoms, and religious beliefs. During these moments, Ifueko felt a pang of isolation, sensing a widening gap between herself and the family she dearly loved. For Ifueko, this period was marred with inner turmoil. She grappled with guilt over causing distress to her family, yet she also felt an urgent need to follow her path of self-discovery. The freedom and openness she experienced in her Canadian surroundings were exhilarating, but brought her into uncharted emotional territory when juxtaposed against her familial ties. In this evolving narrative of their family life, each member grappled with their own sense of loss, understanding, and adaptation. The journey was as much about Ifueko finding her place in the world as it was about her family learning to navigate the delicate balance between holding on and letting go. It was a dance of love, conflict, and growth playing out within the walls of their home as they each strived to find a new equilibrium in their relationships with each other.
Holding on to faith. Aisosa's resilience. In the midst of her family's turbulent transition to life in Canada, Aisosa's commitment to her faith remained a steadfast constant. Amidst the swirl of new experiences, cultural shifts, and the evolving dynamics within her family, her faith stood as an anchor, providing her with a sense of resilience and guidance. Aisosa found solace in her religious practices, which she maintained with a quiet determination. Mornings began with her reading passages from the Bible, seeking wisdom and strength for the day ahead. These moments of quiet reflection were her refuge, a time to connect with her beliefs and find peace amidst the chaos of adapting to a new life. Her unwavering commitment to her faith was evident in her daily actions. In school, while she was respectful of the diverse beliefs and perspectives around her, she never shied away from expressing her own convictions. When discussions in class touched on moral or ethical issues, Aisosa contributed thoughtfully, sharing views shaped by her Christian upbringing. Her classmates, some of whom had limited exposure to religious perspectives, were often intrigued by her views, which opened doors to deeper conversations and mutual understanding. Even as her sister Ifueko began to explore new ideologies and question their family's traditional beliefs, Aisosa's faith did not waver. She watched Ifueko's transformation with a blend of curiosity and concern, but it did not shake her own belief system. If anything, the changes in her sister and the challenges of integrating into a new culture only deepened Aisosa's resolve to hold onto her faith. This resilience, however, did not mean that Aisosa was immune to doubts or questions. There were moments when she pondered the complexities of her faith, especially as she encountered different worldviews and lifestyles. These instances of introspection added depth to her understanding of her beliefs, allowing her to embrace her faith with a more mature and nuanced perspective. In her new Canadian church, Aisosa found a different way of practicing her faith, but the core values and teachings resonated with her deeply. She engaged with the church community, participating in youth groups and volunteer activities. These interactions not only strengthened her faith but also provided a sense of community and belonging in a foreign land. Aisosa's resilience in her faith journey was a quiet yet powerful testament to the strength of her character. In a world where everything was changing, her faith was the one constant she could rely on. It was her guiding light, offering her stability, strength, and a sense of identity as she navigated the myriad challenges of her new life in Canada. A different journey. Aisosa in the midst of change. As Aisosa acclimated to her new life in Canada, her journey unfolded in stark contrast to that of her sister, Ifueko. Where Ifueko dove into the sea of change, eagerly embracing the new and unknown, Aisosa treaded these waters with a careful balance, holding tightly to the anchors of her upbringing. Aisosa's days in Canada were marked by a conscientious effort to blend her Nigerian heritage and Christian values with the realities of her new environment. In school, where diversity of thought and background was the norm, she navigated her way with a quiet confidence, often finding herself as the listener in a sea of varying opinions. While she appreciated the broad spectrum of perspectives, she remained thoughtful about integrating these ideas with her own beliefs. Her approach to social interactions was equally measured. Aisosa made friends, but she did so selectively, gravitating towards peers who shared similar values or respected her beliefs. She found joy in simpler things, a shared lunch with a new friend, a quiet conversation about books, or a volunteer activity at school. These moments, though small, were significant in her journey of adapting to her new life. The divergence in the sisters' paths was most evident in their leisure activities and choices. While Ifueko explored the city, attended social gatherings, and experimented with new hobbies, Aisosa preferred spending her free time in more familiar ways. She enjoyed reading, writing in her journal, and participating in church activities. Her weekends were often spent with the family, cherishing the routines that brought a sense of normalcy and comfort. Despite her efforts to maintain her cultural and religious identity, Aisosa occasionally felt the pull of the new and unfamiliar world around her. She was intrigued by the freedom and independence her peers enjoyed and sometimes wondered what it would be like to step out of her comfort zone. However, her strong sense of self and commitment to her upbringing always guided her back. In her relationship with Ifueko, Aisosa often played the role of the observer and the confidant. She listened to Ifueko's experiences and thoughts with an open mind, offering advice when asked and support when needed. Though their paths were diverging, the bond between the sisters remained intact, each respecting the other's journey. Aisosa's experience in the midst of change was a testament to her inner strength and clarity of purpose. She was charting a path that was uniquely her own, one that skillfully navigated the complexities of integrating into a new culture while staying true to the essence of her upbringing. Her journey was less about transformation and more about deepening her understanding of herself and the world around her, a journey marked by introspection, resilience, and a steadfast adherence to her values. Challenges in adapting. Balancing two worlds. In the midst of the bustling, eclectic Canadian landscape, Aisosa found herself at a crossroads of identities. Her life in Nigeria, rich with communal bonds and steeped in Christian values, contrasted starkly with the individualistic and secular world she now navigated in Canada. This new chapter was not just about adapting to a different country, it was about reconciling the values she held dear with the new realities surrounding her. Each day in school, Aisosa walked through a corridor of diverse cultures, a vivid illustration of the world's plurality that both intrigued and challenged her. She was drawn to the vibrant expressions of identity around her, yet she often felt an undercurrent of disconnect. The individualism celebrated in this new culture was a stark departure from the interdependent community life she cherished in Nigeria. Balancing her own Nigerian identity in this mix was like finding her rhythm in a new dance, exhilarating yet unfamiliar. Her Christian faith, a guiding force in her life, now faced the complexities of a secular environment. In Nigeria, her faith was a communal experience, an intrinsic part of her everyday life. In Canada, however, it often felt like a solitary journey. Expressing her faith openly became a careful exercise measured against the backdrop of a society where such expressions were more personal, less overt. The evolving dynamics within her family added another layer to her journey. As Ifueko, her sister, embraced new ideologies and cultural norms, Aisosa felt a silent pull to be the keeper of their family's traditions and beliefs. Dinners often turned into subtle battlegrounds of ideology, with Aisosa trying to navigate the delicate balance between her parents' traditional views and Ifueko's emerging perspectives. This role, while filled with love and good intentions, was a tightrope walk between support and self-expression. Seeking a sense of belonging, Aisosa turned to the church. Yet here too she encountered a different world. The church in Canada, while welcoming, had a different approach to worship and community. Finding her place in this new religious setting while staying connected to her Nigerian Christian practices was a journey of faith in itself. Through all these challenges, Aisosa's resilience shone through. She learned to embrace the diversity of her new world while firmly holding onto her roots. Her journey was a quiet testament to her strength as she learned to weave her Nigerian heritage and Christian values into the rich fabric of her Canadian life. In this dance of adaptation, Aisosa was not just surviving, she was learning, growing, and redefining what it meant to stay true to oneself in a world brimming with differences. A pillar of strength. Supporting the family. In the midst of the family's transition to life in Canada, Aisosa emerged as a pillar of strength, her unwavering faith and quiet resolve acting as a beacon of stability. As each member grappled with the challenges of adapting to a new world, Aisosa's steadfastness became a source of comfort and inspiration, particularly for her parents, Osahan and Osarag. Amidst the flurry of change, Aisosa's routine remained anchored in her faith. Her mornings still began with quiet prayers and scripture readings, a practice that lent a sense of normalcy and peace in the otherwise hectic and uncertain days. This dedication to her spiritual life was not just a personal solace, it was also a subtle reminder to her family of the enduring values they shared, a thread of continuity in their uprooted lives. Osahan and Osarag found comfort in Aisosa's resilience. In her, they saw the embodiment of the principles they had strived to instill in their children: faith, integrity, and a sense of responsibility. Her ability to uphold these values, even in the face of new influences and challenges, provided them with a sense of assurance. It was a reassurance that, despite the shifts in their environment and the inevitable changes it brought, the core of their family's identity remained intact. In her interactions with Ifueko, Aisosa played a crucial role. She listened attentively to her sister's experiences and evolving viewpoints, offering guidance when sought and understanding when needed. Her approach was not one of judgment but of empathy and support. For Ifueko, Aisosa was both a confidant and a touchstone to their shared upbringing, helping her navigate her own journey of self-discovery. Aisosa's influence extended beyond the confines of their home. In church and community gatherings, her demeanor and attitude often drew admiration and respect from others. She volunteered for church activities not only as a way to connect with her faith but also to build bridges within their new community. These efforts did not go unnoticed by her parents, who saw in them a reflection of the positive impact of their upbringing. For the family, Aisosa's steadfastness in faith and her gentle yet firm support were like a lighthouse guiding them through the fog of transition. Her presence and approach provided a sense of balance in the family, helping them navigate the complexities of integrating into a new culture while retaining the essence of their heritage. In Aisosa, they found not just a daughter and a sister, but a source of strength and inspiration, a reminder that even in the midst of change, some things, like the values they held dear, remained constant and true. Personal growth and understanding. In the diverse, bustling backdrop of Canada, Aisosa found herself on a transformative journey, one that stretched beyond the physical relocation from Nigeria. Her steadfast adherence to her faith and values amidst the sea of new experiences and challenges became a crucible for personal growth and a deeper understanding of her own identity. As Aisosa attended school and interacted with peers from various backgrounds, her world expanded. She was introduced to a spectrum of worldviews that both intrigued and challenged her. This exposure did not shake her faith, instead it deepened it. She began to explore her beliefs with a new intensity, seeking to understand the intricacies of her faith in a broader context. Her devotion turned into a personal quest for truth, making her faith a more integral and informed part of her life. This journey wasn't without its trials. Balancing her Nigerian heritage with the realities of her new Canadian environment often put her in situations where she had to defend her beliefs. These moments of conflict, though difficult, honed her ability to articulate her faith and values. They taught her the importance of empathy, of understanding others even when their perspectives diverged from her own. Aisosa's resolve also played a pivotal role in her family dynamics. As her sister Ifueko embarked on a path of exploration and change, Aisosa became a rock for her parents, Osahan and Osarag. Her unwavering commitment to the family's traditions and beliefs was a source of comfort to them. Yet, watching Ifueko's transformation, Aisosa learned the delicate art of balancing support with respect for individual choices. Her approach to these family changes was marked by patience and an open heart, traits that only deepened her emotional maturity. Through her experiences, Aisosa's understanding of her identity evolved. She carved out a unique space for herself, one where her Nigerian roots and Christian values melded with the multicultural and pluralistic ethos of Canada. This process of self-discovery was empowering, imbuing her with a newfound confidence and a clearer sense of self. In essence, Aisosa's time in Canada was a journey of growth, marked by a deepening of faith, a broadening of perspective, and a strengthening of character. Her story was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enriching power of embracing one's journey with an open mind and a steadfast heart. First major conflict. A family at crossroads. In the midst of their new life in Canada, Ifueko began to veer off the path that her parents, Osahan and Osarag, had so carefully laid out for her, guided by their Nigerian heritage and strong Christian beliefs. This divergence, which took shape as a series of rebellious actions against her family's traditional values, was a source of deep concern and conflict within the family. Ifueko's exposure to the varied and secular environment of her Canadian school had introduced her to a range of ideologies that stood in stark contrast to the biblical teachings and cultural norms she was raised with. She found herself drawn to these new ideas, which seemed to offer a sense of freedom and self-expression that was different from what she had known. However, this newfound freedom was at odds with the godly principles her family cherished. Her Sundays, once dedicated to worship and fellowship at church, began to shift in focus. Ifueko started to question the need for regular church attendance, opting instead to spend time pursuing other interests. This decision was a significant departure from the family's practice and belief in the sanctity of the Sabbath, causing a rift between her and her parents. The changes in Ifueko's lifestyle extended to her appearance and social activities. She adopted fashion trends and behaviors influenced by her peers, which her parents saw as incongruent with their Christian values. The late-night outings and her involvement in groups that advocated for causes contrary to their faith further deepened the family's concerns. A particularly tense moment arose when Ifueko openly challenged some of the family's long-held cultural and religious beliefs, sparking a heated debate that underscored the growing ideological divide. Her parents, steadfast in their faith and traditions, viewed Ifueko's actions as a move away from the godly upbringing they had strived to provide. They feared that her immersion in the secular aspects of Canadian culture was leading her away from the Christian principles they held dear. Aisosa, witnessing the unfolding tension, remained rooted in the family's traditional values and beliefs. She saw her sister's rebellion not as a mere phase of adaptation but as a concerning departure from the godly path. This period of conflict within the family highlighted the challenges of maintaining their Christian and cultural identity in a society that often prized secularism and individualism over communal and religious values. For Ifueko, what started as an exploration of new ideas and freedoms gradually became a point of contention, distancing her from her family's faith and practices. Her rebellion, influenced by secular ideologies, was a source of sadness and conflict in a family that valued their Christian heritage as the foundation of their lives. Ifueko's rebellion. Ifueko's journey took a decisive turn as she found herself increasingly influenced by new beliefs and perspectives that were in stark contrast to her family's traditional values. This phase of her life, marked by rebellion and a quest for self-identity, brought her into direct conflict with the norms and expectations she had been raised with, leading to a pivotal moment of tension within her family. Immersed in a new culture and surrounded by diverse viewpoints, Ifueko began to question the beliefs and values she had grown up with. Her exploration led her to adopt new ideologies that resonated more with her personal experiences in this new environment. This shift in her beliefs was not just an internal change, it manifested in her actions, choices, and the way she expressed herself. Her family, especially her parents, found it difficult to reconcile with these changes. For them, the traditional values they upheld were not just customs, but a deep-seated part of their identity and heritage. Ifueko's departure from these traditions was seen not just as a phase of youthful rebellion, but as a rejection of the principles they held dear. Tensions escalated as Ifueko began to assert her new beliefs more openly, challenging the family's conventional norms. Discussions around the dinner table turned into debates, and the once harmonious household found itself mired in misunderstandings and conflicts. Ifueko's parents struggled to understand their daughter's perspective, while Ifueko felt increasingly alienated and misunderstood by her family. This period of rebellion reached a climax when Ifueko made a decision that was in complete defiance of her family's expectations. It was a moment that brought the underlying tensions to the surface, forcing both Ifueko and her family to confront the reality of their situation. The conflict with her family was a crucial turning point for Ifueko. It was a period of intense personal struggle, but also one of significant growth and self-discovery. For her family, it was a challenging phase, but one that eventually led to a deeper understanding of the need for empathy, open-mindedness, and the recognition that each individual must find their own path in life. This chapter in Ifueko's life was not just about rebellion, it was a transformative period that reshaped her relationship with her family, her understanding of herself, and set the stage for the remarkable journey she would embark on in the years to come.